Okay, so this video is going to expound and expand a little bit um, from a basic animation to starting to apply some special effects. One of the things I'm going to use are what are called actions. Okay, in your bar here, it has the play arrow. If you don't have it, go to Window, Actions. Okay, so actions are a series of steps that you can record that you can then apply to multiple files. So just as an example, um, I years ago. I worked at a print place that also did photography, and they needed to have a series of about 1,500 photographs of people who were coming to a county fair. They wanted to make it look like it was Western, so they wanted it to be changed to sepia toned and then apply a vignette. Okay. Now, I could do that to 1,500 files, but holy cow, right? Like, that would take me the better part of a week probably to, not really, but it would be deadly dull and it would take a long, long time. So Photoshop just started really doing actions. I was able to record my steps on one file and then apply it to the folder. Processing power wasn't as strong, to put it mildly, back then, so it took the better part of a night. I just set it to run at the end of work, and I came in the next day, and it had applied that action to 1,500 files and made them all the same. I had to go back in and fix a couple just because the photographer didn't have the crop right, but beyond that, it saved me hours and hours of work. All right, so that said, what we want to do is I'm going to apply a very simple filter to action to this, and I'm going to apply it to all the files in the folder. Photoshop has a few quirks about how this runs. I will say that if you're really interested, again, in motion and in doing this kind of stuff, something like Premiere Pro or some other programs are better for this. And again, if you are comfortable using that and want to use that for your narrative project or your final, by all means, I have no problem with that. Just let me know. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is make a new action. Okay, you notice you have some presets. We're not going to use any of these. Down at the bottom, much like on your layer file, you have a create new. I'm going to call it oil paint because I'm just going to apply the oil paint filter, and I'm going to record. Now, from this point on, you see this little red dot here. Okay, that means that this action is now recording what you're doing. Okay, if you want to stop it, you just hit stop. So if you have to fix something, then you come back in and you can hit record again. There are some things that it will not record. Right, so you notice it recorded me selecting the brush, okay, but it will not record me actually using the brush. All right. Now the other problem here too is that once you've done that, okay, you can't take this out. You can remove the check mark, or you just have to redo the entire. Or you just have to redo the entire thing. Okay. All right. So if that happens, if you mess something up, it is annoying. Just go ahead and delete it, create a new. All right, and hit record. Okay. Now, all I'm going to do is go into my filter, stylize, and oil paint. So we haven't gotten too much into filters yet, and there's a reason why. And one, really, I think the best way to explain it is they're much like magic tricks. Once you know the trick, it's not very interesting anymore. So someone who's done any sort of thing in Photoshop and knows anything about it will be able to look at this and say, oh, you just applied an oil paint filter to it. Okay, so that's why you want to be really careful, especially with something like this, because it is so hard to make it not look like you applied an oil paint filter to it. Okay, so go ahead and play with it some. Take it to whatever you kind of like. I like it a little more trippy like this myself personally, and I'm gonna hit OK. Now I'm going to go ahead and stop my action. And again, there's a very simple action. Okay. Here's part of the problem, and here's why we'll have to do things. We're going to have to apply it to a file. Photoshop will do this, but only one at a time on each layer. So I have to turn this layer off, turn this one on, click on oil paint action, right, and click for it to go. Same thing every time. Okay. So it'll redo it, but it's going to take you a while. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to File, Automate, Batch. So File, Automate, Batch. What this does is it will apply an action to a batch of files. So I'm going to go ahead Make sure it's underneath default actions, and make sure you pick oil paint. Okay, the source will be a folder. We're going to go ahead and go in and choose. Okay, so pick your animated GIF folder, choose that. What we don't want to do is we don't want to alter all the files in there. So we are going to export them, okay, to, in this case, I already have a folder set up. Okay, digital design, spring 2021, module 7, and I have it just named animation output. Okay, so I'm going to choose that. You can also, underneath here, you can change the file naming, right? You can change the way it all looks. Okay, this isn't really important unless you really need it specifically for some reason to name them a certain way. Okay, now just as a warning, if you are sensitive to things that flash, okay, what's going to happen is Photoshop is going to open up a file, apply the filter, save it, and close it. And it's going to do that pretty rapidly, so it's going to look like the screen is flashing. So if that's a problem, I'm letting you know ahead of time. Okay, you may want to step away from the machine if you have some issues with that. And I'm going to go ahead, once all this is set, and I'm going to hit OK. All right, so this will take just a minute to run, not too long. Now, if you have, I've done a 3.5 or 4 minute long video before, and I exported all the frames from it. That took some time. Okay, so depending on how long it is. So we're going to do the same thing we did before. We're going to go to File, Scripts, and we're going to load files into Stack. Because now we want to take all of our paint ones and do the same thing. Okay, File, Scripts, load files into Stack. We want to choose Folder, Browse, and I'm going to go ahead and go to my animation output and open that and hit OK. There we go. It'll take it a second to kind of go through. All right, so there we go. So I'm going to go ahead and the same thing I did with the other file. I am going to make sure to select Create Frame Animation, click on the Create Frame Animation button. I'm going to go ahead and make frames from layers. All right, if I hit play, the sky gets kind of fun, I think. But here, let me zoom in a little bit so you can see. Okay, there we go. And now I have created something odd. Okay, so I'm going to do the same thing I did before, and this is what I want you to do as well. So I'm going to want your animated GIF from the lake, and then also from this. Export, save for Web Legacy. Okay, same thing as before. Make sure you hit save and not done. Okay, and I'm going to call it Lake Paint. Okay, in my case, I'd done it before, so I'm going to go ahead and replace it. Okay, and I'm going to do the same thing I did before, which is I'm going to come in okay, I want to make sure that it worked correctly. Okay, I'm going to locate the file and I'm going to open this. This time I'll just open with Safari just to see. It should work the same in both browsers. And there we go. There is my animated GIF with a special effect applied. Okay, so hopefully you can see, again, this is, I'm just trying to give you very, very basic start to wanting to kind of work with this. If you have a camera set up and wanted to do stop motion animation, that is perfectly valid. Okay, so for these first two files, I want to see the animated GIF of Lake Tahoe shore, and the second one, you don't have to use the paint filter. You can use another filter. That I don't really care, whatever you want to use. I just want to see that you can apply an action, apply it to all the files, okay, and then save it as an animated GIF.